And we are back here with our last market commentary and corporate update for the day. Happen to be welcome in with the CEO of Contact Gold, Mr. Matthew Lennox-King. Matt, you and I have a number of things to talk about, but specifically just on some really continued success with the drill bit at your Green Springs project in Nevada. Before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty details of what some of these results are telling you, let's just take an overall kind of high-level approach to what has been happening with the drill bit, and you can start really seeing this thing get put together. Really, and
yeah.
it's not a complicated story geologically to make sense of right now.
No, I would agree with that for sure. And so last fall we drilled 41 holes, roughly 5,800 meters, which would be a bit over 20,000 feet. So pretty sizable program. And to your point, yeah, we've made some really good progress as far as putting together the geologic picture, and it's quite straightforward. I mean, everything gets more complicated as you go down various rabbit holes, but you're essentially dealing with two main host units that we see gold in at Green Springs, but also regionally, right? So at the Fiore assets, they also have these two units, which are the Chainman and the Pilot. The stratigraphy is pretty well behaved in that it's right side up, and you typically cut the full sequence with the drill. And that means that, understanding the stratigraphy, understanding the structural setting. So where are the major faults that control the emplacement of the gold occurrences or deposits, that we've done really well with the drill. And that means we've had some good intercepts of around a gram over 30 to 40 meters, which is kind of what we expect to see. But then we've also had some results like what we put out this morning, where we have almost 11 grams over 4.5 meters, higher grade, stronger structural control. And that's really exciting to see that higher grade element, start to emerge at Green Springs.
And a lot of these are not, they're not deep holes, right? You're finding these very reasonably close to surface. Give or take 50 meters, maybe not even that deep.
Correct. Yeah, it's so far our exploration has been really shallow. The deepest holes that we've drilled have been about 160 meters, and that's to cut through both host horizons or potential host horizons, and TD or terminate the hole down there. So yeah, it's still very shallow. A lot of this stuff you can walk up and stand on outcropping mineralization. And for the program that we intend to start up in late February, the first place we'll go is a place called Tango that's never been drilled before, but you can go and stand on outcrops that run a gram or two gold. So that's where we intend to set up with the drill. So really reinforcing that it's shallow. It's at surface.
Yeah. I do want to ask you about today. I think it was today's. Sorry, it's been a long day. Today's news release from Bravo. But before we get there, a couple of weeks ago, you kind of did a pretty big step out over the Gulf target, which is just over a kilometer to the east of the main, historic mine trend there. And it still found some nice mineralizations. It wasn't as big of a grade as you have found within that, that trend, the original trend, but still something you could build upon.
Absolutely, yeah. So Gulf, as you say, is roughly a kilometer, 1.2 kilometers to the east of the mine trend. So it's big. There's a big gold and soil anomaly out there. So we and previous operators have done all the soil sampling. We've gridded it up. There's a big east-west oriented structural corridor, series of faults that rips through there. You've got good jasperoid development, so silicification of your limestones and shales. And in 2017, the last company in here, which was Colorado Resources, drilled two really shallow holes. And they hit a thin zone right at surface of roughly a gram over 6 meters. So our drilling was really twofold. First was to sort of offset and confirm those, and we got broadly the same results, sort of 0.8 over 9 meters type thing. And you could conceivably build some reasonable tonnage. It'd be a shallow deposit, thin deposit, but some reasonable tonnage. But we also took one of the holes deeper, the additional 75 meters necessary to get down to the pilot shale, and we hit. We hit about 0.35, fully oxidized over about 5 meters, and that's a great proof of concept that these stacked target horizons aren't restricted to the mine trend, and that's something that we can now take and expand and apply it across Green Springs. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so anywhere we have mineralization or somebody else's mineralization in the Chainman Shale, so the old host in the near surface, we're pretty confident we can drill down beneath that to the pilot shale and hit as well.
Okay, very good. Let's now talk about this news out of Bravo Zone. I believe this was the highest grade you've drilled, definitely at Green Springs. 10.7 grams per ton oxide gold over 4.5 meters. All came from Bravo. Did the grade surprise you at all?
Yes, it did, actually. Yeah, so if we look at some of the other holes in this release from Bravo, more in keeping with what I would expect would be sort of 1.23 over 17 meters. That would be in keeping with what we drilled in 2019, but also what the historic data tells us. So around a gram, 20 to 30 meters, shallow, well oxidized is what we'd expect. Typically, in our previous work and in the historic data, we've also seen Bravo being in the pilot shale, so that what is the older unit, but still at surface, given the way rocks move around with faulting and erosion. So this higher grade one, to me, very surprising. One, the grade. So we think it's in a big fault system, but also that it is in the Chainman. So what it does is it puts our two main host units with grade essentially right next to each other at surface, which is pretty cool. And I would say that we're thinking now, we're putting more importance on this big northeast fault that runs from Bravo, which is essentially at the northern end of the mine trend, mm-hmm. out through Alpha and then up to our Tango target in the northeast. So it does look like it's a very important structure. And it does look, in these types of systems where you're a Carlin type system in platform carbonates, more structural complication or more busted up rock is better than less.
This drill hole is pretty interesting because you're kind of going at it at, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's a 45-degree angle, maybe not that steep, but you do have, as you approach the Jasperoid section of the geology, like you do have the opportunity to get those wider intervals just because of the angle, right? And I'm just kind of curious, as you continue to drill, how much of those angles are you going to need to be, playing with here to kind of increase your mineralization?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so, like, you always want to hit I'm just looking at the cross section now, but you always kind of want to hit things as close to 90 degrees as possible. That's going to give you your truest cut. Now, if we look at that same cross section, you can see that we have the two main faults that we're projecting through here are actually east dipping faults. Right. Mm-hmm. So to hit those, to test those in the best way possible, you're actually going to kind of want to come back and drill from the east side across to the west. That's something like a 45-degree angle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and given some of the grades we're seeing, in today's hole, so hole 25. Some of the thicknesses we're seeing adjacent to those faults, those faults are definitely going to be important for our targeting for this winter's program.
Well, even in that same hole, that mineralization that you hit down towards the bottom of the hole, graded 0.24 grams per ton over 6 meters. That's really interesting because really, out of all the drill releases shown on this cross section here, that's the only hole that actually hit gold mineralization around that depth.
That's right. Yeah. And so, that pilot shale that's our secondary target for the mine trend, right? So the mine trend, everything that was defined in the past on the mine trend at Green Springs is up in the Chainman or the Joanna. And then so one of our main targets is is chasing or testing that pilot shale at depth. And so, as you're pointing out, yeah, hole 25 did hit decent grade, arguably above cutoff, right adjacent to one of those faults in the pilot shale. So that's pretty important proof of concept, that deeper pilot shale, and still not that deep, we're less than 100 meters vertical there, can host. And then when we look on the right-hand side of that same cross-section, on the eastern part of Bravo, you see some really nice intercepts in that same pilot shale up in the near surface, anywhere from 1.2 to 1.6 grams over 13 to just under 20 meters. So that's the type of target that we're looking for in that we'll call it the second part of the pilot shale to the west.
Very good. You got a lot more drill results will be published here, it sounds like. Fill us in where we're at, and just will that basically we'll be conquering the news out of Contact Gold here the next couple of weeks?
It will. So we have results from Alpha. We have some results from Charlie. We have some results from Echo as well to come. So that'll definitely be the thrust of the news. We are looking to get back here, we'll say third week of February, to start to kick off this winter's program. That'll start out at the Tango Zone. We'll also do some work at Gulf. We'll continue to drill beneath the mine trend. And I think to me, it's really, Tango's very exciting. That target has never been drilled before. It's large. It's got great looking alteration at surface. It's got some really good gold grades. But then coming down to the very south of the mine trend where we made the Zulu discovery, and we have room to just keep going down to the south and ideally extending that. And that's roughly 1.3 grams over 27 meters, all oxide, nice and shallow. So as you said, yeah, it's coming together, and now we can see, after having a program and a half here, how we're going to grow it, where we're going to grow it, where the best opportunities are.
All right. Matt, I appreciate your time. Really simple story to follow. I encourage everybody to go check out the news release. There's a couple links there to the graphic for the cross section from Bravo. It's, again, really easy to kind of make sense of, and I'm sure if you had any follow-up questions, you could always look up Matt or his team there at Contact Gold and ask him those. But Matt, I look forward to contacting you, checking in with you in a few weeks as we get some more drill results out. But until then, best of luck and thanks for your time. Absolutely, anytime.
The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decision.